A few years ago, I made a list of the strongest bosses in KOF, and even though I clearly specified that I based the ranking solely on gameplay and how hard they are to beat, I got a lot of comments complaining how dare I put Orochi in the number 10 spot, he is the strongest thing ever, and such. Well, rejoice. This is a similar list, but this time I'm gonna rank the entries on how strong they are from a story and lore perspective, just like you wanted. The entries are not carbon copy from the ones of the strongest bosses in KOF, but the list is still composed of bosses. Of course it is. Bosses are the strongest characters in any video game after all. I thought of comparing each entry with the one that preceded it. This way I can tell why I think this boss is stronger than that one, and at the end we'll get a nice logical ranking and everything would make sense. Hopefully. Without further ado, here's the top 10 strongest beings in KOF from a lore perspective. The first boss of the Nest saga is a fan favorite. Chrysalid is an SNK boss in its purest form, high damage output, unfair cheap moves, and a second form that is even cheaper than the first, obviously. But all that don't matter in this list. What makes Chrysalid one of the most powerful beings in the KOF universe is a combination of a lot of things actually. He was cloned from K-Dash and was designed to be the perfect fighter in every way. As such, he has pyrokinetic powers, slashing attacks, and a high-tech suit that further enhance his capabilities, though he's still super strong even without it. His physical strength isn't his only asset. Chrysalid is also smart and cunning, in addition of being a hard-working guy who always seeks to improve himself. Perhaps his weakest point was his blind loyalty to the wrong guys that ultimately caused his doom. If he ever comes back, and he should, things will be super rough for K-Dash and his friends. This position is reserved for two characters. Clone Zero and Original Zero are the next bosses of the Nest saga, and in terms of strength they are almost equal to each other. Lore-wise of course, because in gameplay, a lot of you would argue that Original Zero is a lot tougher, and I agree, but the main reason behind that is due to his striker bodies. Clone and Original fight using the same moves. They rely heavily on their weaponized suits. That's not to say that they are helpless without them. Both characters have control over a mysterious dark energy seen during their devastating desperate moves. If I have to compare the two, I'd say Original Zero is the stronger one, but not by much. He seems more comfortable using his powers, giving off the feeling that he is not trying as hard as his clone counterpart. But all in all, they are at the same monstrous level of strength. And another apparition of everyone's favorite SNK boss. Why do I think that Rugal is stronger than the Zero fellas? Well, he has a lot of tools up his sleeves. Rugal's ability to copy others' moves is one of them, and in many cases he surpasses the original user of that move. Far from being a simple mimic, he always comes up with new techniques of his own each time he appears in a game. Shooting laser beams from his cybernetic eye is the latest of them. And let's not forget that he has Orochi powers too, that give him an incredible boost to his already dreadful strength, speed and constitution, though he can't use too much of that power or he'll end up consumed by it. But the main reason why I think Rugal is stronger than the previous entries is his stubbornness. Rugal is a relentless jerk. He just doesn't know when to give up. While Chrysalid and the Zeros were completely defeated from their encounters with the main protags, Rugal survived his fate in '94 and came back the very following year stronger than ever. He is such a sore loser that he'll never admit defeat, and if he ever realizes that he can't win, he'll make sure to drag as many people as he could down with him. This one is easy. Of all entries of this list, this one was the easiest to rank. I don't think I need to specify why the leader of the Hakishu, Genets, is stronger than Rugal, but in case you forgot or you're new to the series, here's the summary. Genet was the one who took off Rugal's eye, and he did that by beating him with one single blow. He was also the one who gave him the Orochi powers as a test. It is also known that Genet was able to send Kyo to the hospital after a one-on-one combat before the events of KOF 96, and he was only defeated after the 3 sacred treasures gang up on him. Now you might be asking, if Genet is this strong, what about the other 3 Heavenly Kings? Shouldn't they be in this list too? Well, no. They may have a similar status, but they are not as strong as Genet. They were defeated by the sacred treasures in 97 after all, in a 3 vs 3 fight, but they wouldn't have a chance against Genet if they challenged him individually. Hopefully Genet's might will be demonstrated when he comes back in the boss challenge mode in KOF 15. Wind can't beat rock. No, not that rock. I meant the element used by Mukai, the first figure of those from the past who we got to face. But you would be wrong to think that elements of nature are the only factor used to rank Mukai above Genet. There is one peculiar common trait shared between all those from the past bosses. They were never really beaten in a fight. No matter which team makes it to the real final boss of KOF 2003, Mukai will always look fine after the match. That can be interpreted as he wasn't fighting with all his strength. What really got him was the unexpected attack from his master Psyche. That said, I don't think Mukai would have an easy time against Genet either. They both have annoying and hard to avoid long-range attacks, and they could be a real threat in close distance too. But ultimately, I think Mukai has a tiny advantage over Genet thanks to his natural element. I don't think the wildly blowing wind would be very effective against the intimidating rocky body of Mukai. The second figure of the infamous Those from the Past group is well known for being one of the most frustrating bosses to fight ever. Magaki needs no introduction. He's the worst from a pure gameplay perspective, but how would he fare in terms of lore? We know that he has little respect for his fellow comrade Mukai. That may have the implication that he is the stronger one of the two, but there are also elements in his abilities and fighting style that further prove this statement. As we all know, Mukai likes to overwhelm his opponent with projectiles. It's extremely difficult to close distance with him and can easily run away with his teleports and the interdimensional portals he can create. Mukai would have a very hard time landing a hit on Magaki while trying to avoid all his energy balls, especially with his big stature, which would be a liability in this case. Like Mukai, Magaki wasn't really beaten either. He was taken down by an unexpected spear from Xiii. I wonder what role he would have played in subsequent KOF tournaments if he were still alive, but thank God we don't get to know the answer. Hopefully. The main villain of the NES saga, Ignis, is considered as one of the most infuriating bosses to fight in KOF. However, when it comes to his actual strength in the overall story of the franchise, many seem to think that it comes mainly from the super suit he's wearing, but that is only half the truth. You see, Ignis does rely on his suit a lot. And why shouldn't he? It gives him many insane perks, such as boosting his attack and defense capabilities, enhancing his speed, allowing him to fly, reflecting incoming projectiles, which would prove pretty useful against Magaki, or the undeniable superiority in close-ranged combat thanks to its many tentacles. But none of that would matter if Ignis didn't have a built-in skill, so to say, that would allow him to take advantage of all that, and that skill is telepathy. Thanks to that, the suit becomes part of Ignis and not just an accessory. He can also use energy powers on his own, as seen with his projectiles and his devastating desperate move where he harnesses energy from the universe and attacks his enemy with it. His suit has nothing to do with that, by the way. It's this perfect combination of advanced technology with mystical abilities that make Ignis such a fearsome being and explains why he sees himself as a god. In terms of presence, Psyche is the least intimidating entry in this list. He looks more like a spoiled, arrogant brat than the leader of an otherworldly group. But don't let the appearances fool you. The members of those from the past don't obey and follow him because of his charming personality. That much is certain. Xiii is a ruthless tyrant who gained the unconditional loyalty and obedience of his followers thanks to his overwhelming strength. The aforementioned human form of his is already powerful enough, mastering teleportation and the control over a strange dark energy. But like the other members of his clan, Xiii has an awakened form that is far more devastating in terms of sheer power. He can also possess the bodies of others and use their own abilities in a much higher level of proficiency. But his strongest tool is undoubtedly the time manipulation, that thanks to it, he could bring his clan and himself to the present day. This faculty also allows him to control time for specific individuals, and that's how he made Mukai's body age and die instantly. All that being said, he still needed the power of Orochi to achieve his goals, which leads us to the next entry. Way before his appearance in 97, Orochi was hyped to be the main antagonist of the series. Every actions the villains did in the previous games were building up to his inevitable return. His sinister and intimidating reputation is helped by the fact that Orochi originates from a real-world myth. All this to say, this guy means business. Though until very recently, we never got to see the true extent of his powers. He was defeated 1800 years ago by the ancestors of the sacred treasures before the ritual of his return was complete, and he was defeated again in the present day when he materialized in Chris's body after the ritual was foiled again by Kyo and company. Orochi's weakest point is that he needs a host. That fact was always the cause behind his failure. But what if he managed to come back in full power? Or what if he never needed a host to begin with? Well, the answer to this question can be seen in the awakened Orochi team's ending in 15, an alternative scenario where his followers managed to successfully resurrect him. The result was the utter annihilation of all human life on Earth. This guy is not messing around. But he's still not the strongest. Before unveiling the number one spot, there is one honorable mention I need to talk about, and that is Verse or Reverse. In terms of physical power, I don't find it very strong personally. It does have some devastating attacks of course, but I don't think that could match those of the aforementioned entries. But the fact that this creature could imprison the souls of many dead warriors is quite intriguing. Is it actually more powerful than the games made it appear, especially that we know that it can change appearances and fighting styles? I can't say for sure, and that's why I'm including it as an honorable mention. What do you know? The latest boss to join the series is actually the strongest being in the KOF universe, and I assume a lot of you are not happy with this ranking, but hear me out for a moment. I'm well aware that Otoma Raga failed to meet the fans' expectations as the final boss of KOF 15. There was no build-up to her appearance, and she just came out of nowhere, literally, and we have no idea what she was saying. In this regard, I agree with them, even though I do like her design, but it's true that her backstory needs more improvement. However, this isn't a list about who's the most popular, it's about strength, and in this field, Otoma Raga kicks major butt. And I can prove it. First, remember Verse or Reverse? Of course you do, I just mentioned it. That creature was imprisoned in the souls of most characters in this list, including Orochi's, and Verse is only a servant of Otoma Raga, tasked to gather souls that would allow her to open the gate from her dimension to ours. And then there is the awakened Orochi team's ending. Even though it's not canon, it gives us a lot of insight about the true power of Otoma Raga. In that ending, the Orochi team used a mere fragment of her body to break the seal of Orochi and resurrect him, without the need of a ritual or a host. Heck, they even realized that Orochi might be just an offspring of Otoma Raga, and she is a much higher deity. With that, I don't think there is much left to argue against Otoma Raga's obvious superiority, and that's why she is the strongest being in KOF. For now. So, which one of these monsters is your favorite? Or do you think that there is another character that should have been included in this list? I'd like to read your answer in the comments. Special thanks to my patrons for their support. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and why not consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.